A very good day to all of you. In the lesson today, we're going to talk about how to do a product review presentation. In the previous week, we have touched on how to produce a product or service review in a written form. But in the lesson this week, the focus would be how to speak or present your product review as a presentation. So the process of presenting a product or a service review is similar to the process of writing a product review. So when we are doing a presentation, we have to follow certain format. So the same goes when we are writing. So when we are writing, we have the introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. So when we are speaking, when we are doing a presentation, it is also important for us to have these things, these features, for us to follow the format properly to make sure that our presentation is well arranged and easily understood by people. So when we are doing a presentation, it is always important for us to start with an introduction. And then we have in the introduction, we have what we call as the thesis, the general background of the issue, and then followed by the thesis statement, which is the last sentence in the introduction. And then the next paragraphs would be the body paragraph, and then followed by a conclusion paragraph. So let's say when I am talking about global warming, so in my introduction, I should have a general background of what global warming is and how serious the problem is. And then in my last sentence of the introduction, I should have what we call as the thesis statement. The thesis statement is like the topic of the presentation or the topic of the essay. So it tells people what you are going to talk about in the rest of your presentation, or what you're going to write about in the rest of your essay. So an example of a thesis statement would be something like this. So therefore, in this presentation, I'd like to share with you the three main causes of global warming, which are illegal logging, overdevelopment, and the melting of the ice, for example, or excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So when you go to the body paragraph, you mention back the three main points that you mentioned in your thesis statement. So first, the main cause of global warming is overdevelopment. And then you go on with the description and the examples of the situation of overdevelopment. And then once done, you move on to the second paragraph of the body paragraph. The next cause of global warming is illegal logging. And then you go on with the descriptions of what happened in during illegal logging, what people do when they log excessively, and then you give some examples from your from data, statistics, opinions from what you have seen or what you have experienced. And then you move on from point to points until lastly you conclude with a conclusion. So when we are talking about a product or service review, we have done the written part or the written form of the product or service review. And when we are doing a presentation of the product or service review, the format is basically similar. So we have an introduction. What do you have in the introduction of your product or service review? You give the general background of the product or the service, and then you end with a in your introduction, you end your introduction with a thesis statement. For example, let's say we are talking about food delivery service, Food Panda. So the general background would be something like people nowadays prefer to have their food delivered to their doorsteps instead of going out to dine at the restaurants. This is due to the availability of smartphones and the widespread coverage of the internet. So in my vlog today, for example, if you are vlogging, so in today's for the topic of discussion today, I would like to share with you my experience or my review of the latest food delivery service in town, which is Foodpanda. So that would be your thesis statement. So when you are speaking, when it is a presentation, it is also okay to start your presentation with greetings. For example, hi, good morning, how are you? So something like that. And then once you have done with the introduction part, you move on to the body paragraph. So for product or service review, what you have in your body paragraph is the description of the products or the description of the service. So you talk about all possible things that can be talked about. Of course, you don't talk about everything because that will make your essay or your presentation too lengthy. And so basically we can talk about the 5 senses: what you see, what you smell, what you feel when you touch, what you hear, and what you taste. Depends on what product or what service you are talking about. Also, we can talk about the features: the weight, the shape, the size, the color, the anything that is possible. If you are talking about electronic products, you can talk about the camera, the screen, the resolution, how many pixels, everything that is possible that you want to highlight in your product or service review, so people can learn about the product and they can decide whether or not to choose to buy or to use the service. So basically the format of the product review presentation is similar to how we write the product or service review. So we start with an introduction, and then in the body paragraph, how many paragraphs in the body paragraph, up to depends on how many points we are talking. So the descriptions of the specifications, the features, everything, and then we can also compare and contrast with other similar products of different brands, so that we can see the pros and the cons, or the strengths and the weaknesses, and then we can suggest what to improve for this product in terms of the packaging, in terms of the color choices. Maybe the packaging looks a bit boring as compared to other similar products. Less color, it should be more colorful. The camera is not good enough, or the service, maybe the resort room is very small. Let's say it is a service, a hotel service, so you can talk about whether the service is good or not, whether the food provided is good up to what you expect or not, or maybe in the brochure it looks very beautiful, but when the food is served to you, it is not as good as in the picture. So those things you can talk about in your review. So you have to remember that when we are talking about a review, it is not a summary. You are not summarizing a product. You are not just simply describing the products, but you also compare and contrast, so you can see the strengths and weaknesses, and then you can suggest for future improvements, and then you can recommend people whether or not they should buy or shouldn't buy the product, or they should use or shouldn't use the service. So that is a review. Review has to be critical. You don't just simply talk about what the product has. You don't just simply talk about the specifications describing the product, but you compare and contrast to see the pros and the cons, the strengths and the weaknesses, so you can give suggestions to people whether or not they should do or they should go with the service or not, or whether they should buy the product or not. So that is what you have in your body paragraph. So in your body paragraph, it is always important to use linkers so that your presentation will be seen as continuous. For example, use the words and phrases like firstly, secondly, third, in addition, furthermore, to add to that, on the one hand, on the other hand. Later we'll take a look at some possible phrases that can be used in a presentation. So once you have done with the description and compare and contrast the strengths and weaknesses, you can also talk about your experience of using the product. So what do you feel about the product yourself? So this is your personal experience. In the previous part, we talk about the descriptions of the product, and at the same time, we compare and contrast which is better, which is less better. But when we are talking about your experience, what do you feel about it? This is your personal view of the product, why you like it, why you dislike it, so things like that. Anything that is possible about your experience of using the product. If you have not tried the product yet, you can also talk about other people's or your friends' experience of using the product, or you can also imagine, if you have the product, what would your experience be. You as a student, you as a citizen, you as a tourist, you as someone who goes to the salon, someone who is using a food delivery service. So what is your experience? Maybe you think let's say you're using Food Panda versus GrabFood. You think Food Panda takes a lot of time for the food to be delivered to your house as compared to other services. So what is your feeling? You can also describe your feelings. So it is not necessarily that it has to be all positive. You can also, if it is negative, so you can talk about the negative side of the product or the service. So that is the purpose of review. So if it is positive, it is positive. It is negative, it is negative. If it is a mix of positive and negative, then it is a mix of positive and negative. So in the end of the review, you will recommend to people whether or not they should go or shouldn't go for the product or the service. So once you have done with your experience, what you do is you talk about would be the concluding paragraph of your essay. If it is a presentation, it is a concluding part of your presentation. So what do you have in your conclusion? Normally you rate the product or you rate the service 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3, 4 or 5 out of 5. You can also give stars, how many stars, and then you conclude your presentation with a recommendation. So you say, therefore I would recommend people to use this travel package, or to go with this travel package, this tour, because the service is very good. So you give a little bit of justification why you recommend people, why people should buy the product or shouldn't buy the product, or should use or shouldn't use the service. So that is the format of a product review or service review presentation. It is similar as writing, but the format is similar as it is in a written form. However, there are some standard phrases that can be added to a presentation of a product or service review. For example, you can use, for your introduction, you can add a good morning, the greetings. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my channel again. So instead of my presentation, perhaps you can say, welcome to my channel. First of all, let me thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to share with you my experience of using the latest iPhone 12. For example. So make sure you have a little bit of a background, and then you have your thesis statement in your introduction. You can also start your presentation by let me start by thanking all of you for subscribing. And then nowadays there are a lot of different phone models in the market. Last week Apple have come out with the latest iPhone model, which is iPhone 12. Based on the previous review, a lot of people have bought these phones. How many thousand people have bought these phones since the launch last week? And then today I have the opportunity of having the latest phone with me, so I'm going to do a review of this phone. So you can start your introduction like that. So there are many ways of saying. You can be creative as long as it sounds logical and relevant. So in my presentation, I'll focus on three major aspects of the product, which is the camera, the other things. So if it is a different products, depends on the other products. And then, so there are many ways that you can go in the internet. You can Google phrases used in a presentation. You can also ask a rhetorical question. So what do you think about it? So you don't expect the answer, but you ask the questions to get people to think about what you are talking. And then questions, you can also ask questions. If you have any questions, please post your questions in the comment sections if it is recorded. If it is a live presentation, then people can ask physically, face to face. Firstly, secondly, so the sequencing is also important so that our presentation will be seen as continuous. Instead of using firstly, secondly, thirdly, moreover, then next, to add to that, furthermore, on the one hand, on the other hand, you can also say, my first point is, first of all, I'd like to give you an overview of the camera feature of this phone, or I would like to give you an overview of the latest hand sanitizer product by this or that brand. Next, then finally, and then highlighting information. I like to put the situation into some kind of perspective. I like to discuss in more depth the implications of using this product, hand sanitizer or facial cream or cosmetic products or whatever. And then in the conclusion paragraph, instead of saying to conclude, you can also say I'd just like to finish with by giving this product a rating of 3 out of 5. And I think I would recommend this product for those who doesn't use it very much, but for a heavy user, they might want to get a different product that is better in terms of speed and everything. So there are you can use your creativity in doing your presentation, but it is very important when we are doing a presentation, when we are sharing information verbally with people, it is very important for us to be natural. So be natural is like you are speaking to your friends. It is not like you are giving presentation, but it is like you are speaking to your friends. Be natural. How to be natural? Do not read from notes and do not read from scripts. So when it is a speaking assessment, for example, it is a speaking assessment, it is not a reading out loud assessment. So it is very important for you to look at the audience. If you are recording yourself, your eyes are looking at the camera and not reading the scripts or the notes behind the camera. So being natural is very important because that will attract people to listen to you and to understand what you are saying and to participate in whatever you are sharing. So be natural. And the other way to be natural is to rehearse or to practice as many times as possible before you go for the presentation or the sharing session. So practice makes perfect. Be natural. Do not read from notes and scripts. Practice as many times as you can. And then finally, be yourself. Do not be other people. You practice and then you speak like you always speak. But of course, to make it better, you'll have to practice as well as take a look at the grammatical mistakes, possible grammatical mistakes that you might do in your presentation. So try to avoid grammatical mistakes and your body movement. So make sure you don't move here and there, but you don't swing here and there, but you stand or sit statically, but you can have your facial expressions and your hand movements when you're talking to people. So look professional when you are giving a presentation. For the purpose of the practice this week, as on eCampus, you can see the question, come out with a 2-minute recording of a product review of your choice. You can select a product and do a 2-minute review of the product following the format mentioned in this video. So starting from an introduction, in the introduction you have the background situation, background information, and the thesis statement. Of course, you can start with greetings: good morning, good afternoon, hi, how are you, welcome to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe, anything, something like that, because you want to look natural. And then you go on with the descriptions of the products in terms of the features, in terms of everything, and then you do the compare. For each description, for each point, you compare and contrast with other similar products of different brands, and you can highlight the pros and the cons, strengths and weaknesses, and then you can come out with a suggestion for the company what can be improved. And then you talk about your experience of using the product, your personal experience, and then you end with a conclusion. So a 2-minute recording of your sharing session of a product of your selection, and you can submit, click the record your own video button on eCampus. Then once done, you can click submit. So thank you very much. I'll see you again in the next lesson.